Hey guys, it's Aaron Gwinnett here from Defy Entertainment, and today I'm going to be showing you some of the music stuff for Neyyah. So I'm going to be showing you the beginnings of a new composition that I'm working on, probably the things that will go wrong and bits of the songs that don't make it. So I thought I'd show you some of that today since I'm starting a new track. And also I'm going to be showing you the software that I'm using, Cakewalk, and how I record the music, as well as breaking down a track that you guys will be seeing or listening to at the same time, because I'm going to be revealing a video of some of Neyyah's gameplay with the first track that I've recorded for the game actually in game, so you get an idea of kind of the vibe that I'm going for. And this video kind of shows a bit more of that as well, and also just kind of delves a bit deeper into my kind of process and my ideas and inspirations as well. So what I've got here in front of me is Cakewalk, which I also use for the sound design as well, and I'll link the video to my sound devlog in the description below as well in this video. And it's great. I've been using it for, well, a long time. I used it back in 2017 and 2016, also a bit in 2018 as well, 2019. 2018 was when I started creating Neyyah, so it kind of became more kind of like an art job for me in the beginning. And I composed a bit of music here and there, but I used to use it for my music tuition business that I had with my wife Nancy as well. And so I used to record some of the students, and it's just a great software. It's really cool actually getting back into the software too, because it's been a while since I've recorded any music, a long time. And yeah, it's just a breath of fresh air, especially when it comes down to Neyyah as well, and creating this game. It's just a really cool way and a different way of kind of expressing the story, the characters, everything that's going on in the game, the environments as well, and how they speak to me through music. So that's a really cool thing to think about when I'm doing the music for the game. I want to break down some of the separate tracks that have made this piece of music. So I've actually got all tracks laid out here. So there's about 27 different pieces of music going on in this one piece. I'm just going to go into Visionaire here, and I'm going to play you the clip that you'll be seeing on YouTube. I'm just going to run it in Visionaire quickly, so you'll hear the music in the game. You can also hear the sound effects going on in the background as well. Now I will say one thing, there is an option in the game which I've started implementing now called Music Lover. This plays extra music in the game, so it doesn't stop the music, it doesn't turn down this music. This is a track that is a default piece within the actual game itself, but we'll be having, I think, like a volume that you can change as well. I think one of the hardest things is sometimes mixing a default mix of the music with the sound, because you want the music to kind of come through, and I think it's quite nice at the moment, because you get that sound of the creaking, the sound of the water, other sound effects. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But again, that can be dropped down within the actual engine itself. So I can show you quickly. I'm going to go into this a bit more towards the end of the video, but this shows where is it? This is all my music so far for the, well, sounds and music for the game. I've got, this is the signal tower. Okay, so I've actually got my piece here. I'm just going to quickly go into something here that I just want to talk about right now. It's just the volume. So basically, if I had it at 0, it'll just be slightly louder than it was just then. So my idea is to basically have it by decibels, maybe 4 different kind of settings that you can maybe select. I might be able to get some kind of slider kind of thing sorted out as well, depending. But at least then you'll have an option of how loud you want the music. So if I drop that down to say like let's do -6 decibels and now played it, it's going to be a bit quieter. It's a bit more in the background. Still hear it, but it's not so in your face. And even when it starts picking up, yeah, it's just nicely, it's a bit softer, maybe a bit less overpowering. It could be maybe another setting of having it at -12. That's going to be quite quiet. Again, works quite nicely. You can really hear more of the sounds coming through. It's much more in the background. And then you've got 0, which maybe could be maybe just below 0. I had it before. Which is, you know, could be like the loudest you could have the music. So I'm thinking maybe having like 4 different settings for music within the game, and that would go for well, the music lover option as well. Again, that'll be something I want to discuss more in another devlog. Just going through what the music lover entails and the kind of like the well, giving you an example as well of the actual one of the tracks, and discussing a bit more about how I'm going about creating that music specifically. I think it's a really cool option. Some adventurers would like to have less music and more sound. And then, you know, some adventurers like to have, you know, yeah, there's a different kind of balance. I prefer myself having kind of maybe a bit less music and having more of the sound, which is why I've got default kind of spots of music throughout the game where the music will actually play. But there's also this option of music lover, which means that in places where I have creatively directed the game in the sense that it's just going to be sound there, well, maybe there could be some music as well. If you really want some music there, there's the option to have it. So I think that's a really cool kind of addition to the game, and kind of different as well. It's kind of inspired a bit by Myst 3 Exile, with how it had in certain locations these kind of stingers, these stings of music that would play. I thought that was quite cool, and so I thought, well, it's also going to be quite nice to maybe have some extra sort of music within certain locations as well. And I guess, well, mainly the challenge has been kind of being able to go from music lover music into default music. So I'll be talking about that in a later video anyway. But yeah, I just thought I'd show you these volumes there. But I really want to show you the actual track itself. So this is the actual file within Cakewalk. This is Sonar Platinum. So you got the track here. There's various different sounds going on. One of the first tracks here, and I've actually labeled all of them, so I'm actually going to show you some of the equipment as well that I'm using today, and the keyboard that I'm using here right now, which is the Yamaha PSR E463. Beautiful, beautiful keyboard. It's got some really nice sounds, and I can actually edit those sounds within the keyboard itself. I can register those under a memory, and hence why you can see here on some of these titles, I've actually had to, so I can remind myself if I need to go back to them, or what I used within a particular song, what bank it was, what memory it was, and the name of the actual sound itself and the number. So I try and do that all the time with every track that I'm actually recording. So we're just going to solo this track here. So you can see here I just pressed the S button there, which solos the track. I've also got some mute sections going on, so these tracks maybe weren't even used, or I just decided to take them out or whatever. But yeah, using the solo is just great when you just want to hear one track or a couple of tracks for mixing purposes, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the fluty sound that you can hear within this track, which is really nice. Showing you some of the effects. Got some reverb going on. I found with Neyya's sound for music, delay and reverb are quite big things. They really help create a big kind of spacious kind of sound, and taking away from some of the harshness that you might have within the raw sound itself, just making it sound a bit more airy, especially for instance this track here, where you're really high up and you've got the ocean around you and you want that kind of big kind of expansive sound, almost majestic. And interestingly, like, talking a bit about sort of inspirations, but I'll probably talk about these as well in the video, and the video that I'll be doing on the music lover option, with, you know, Neyyah being quite inspired by Riven. It's obviously Riven had an amazing musical score composed by Robin Miller, and it was kind of so nice to hear the music blend with the environment. Like, it was so ambient and so just meshed really well with the space you're in. And you know, listening to the actual music itself, I really wanted to kind of take a bit of inspiration from it, in the sense that it's going to be ambient music. It should kind of flow with, you know, where you are in the game and the pace of the game. But I've kind of also kind of naturally gone down more of bringing more melody and different tones to the tracks as well. And some of those inspirations are coming from sort of like Pierre Steve, his soundtracks that he did for games like Dragon Lord 2, Heart of the Dragon Man, and also some sort of like Broken Sword kind of sounds going on as well. So I think it's maybe subconscious, but this, you know, you'll hear certain bits in Neyyah's music that kind of reflect that. But yeah, I mean, for example, that flute was just something, I didn't want it to be like melodies to be too sharp or too piercing or distracting from the game, but I find it really adds to the pieces as well, rather than having something that's quite just kind of like pads, synth pads, kind of flowing in and out of each other. I think it also, looking at it from an outside perspective of the game, having something that's separate that you can actually listen to as a, like, you know, if you want to say buy the actual OST, you can actually listen to the tracks and kind of, yeah, enjoy them and kind of visualize the game at the same time. Yeah, and that's with the reverb. This is without the reverb. So you can see it really adds a really nice sound. I'm playing it again, sorry, with the reverb. And then on top of that, I've also got some EQ. So I've actually EQ'd it. So this is the raw sound without any effects. This is with the EQ. So I already kind of made it a bit more alive, just bringing out some frequencies there. I really like this one, I use it a lot. This is the BT Equalizer PEQ 5B-3. I actually really like this equalizer. It's the BT Equalizer PEQ 5B3. I use it a lot. It just seems to work really nicely with the tracks, getting rid of some unwanted frequencies if it's too high or too bassy. But there's various different other EQs that I can actually use. For instance, I also like using the LPQ, LP EQ, which is really nice. This is kind of more of a visual kind of EQ system where I can actually take away, create these bands and then take away certain frequencies, which is really nice. I tend to use that quite a lot as well. But then, yeah, just adding the reverb just adds that extra life to it. and then without effects. So yeah, that's that track. That's sort of like the main kind of fluty sound. But then there's also this one here, which is kind of one of the main sounds of the actual track. So this plays throughout pretty much the entire song, as well as this one here, which is the same thing, just, well, basically recorded a bit later on. This one I didn't actually label, which was weird. Although I know it was on bank 1 from memory. Oh well. I can find it. This keyboard basically registers 32 songs, 32 sounds. So you can, I've got about 32 Neyyah edited sounds in here that I've edited within the keyboard that's specific for the game. So yeah, that's a really nice sound there, without the EQ, and this is with the EQ. Just brings it out a bit more. Didn't have to add anything too drastic to this track. So that's kind of the main kind of bed, the foundations for this song, and on top of that you've also got little bits like this. And you can see it only happens twice within this song. And I have done a couple of just duplicating certain pieces that I played really nicely that came out really well, like whilst recording, and then just kind of duplicated them where I needed them within the track. If they were played nicely, you know, I can just use them again. So it came out really nice. That's got a bit of reverb, a bit of delay as well. This is another sort of tempo delay that I use. Goes really nicely with certain sort of paddy kind of string sounds like this. So example, that's with the effects, and then taking the effects off. Yeah, so those little bits there are just, you know, really great for kind of those little additions that you hear within the track. So I also use a bit of panning as well within the track. This is a really nice kind of sax sound that I've used a few times within the tracks that I've created so far for Neyyah. It's just a beautiful sound. It's got some reverb behind it, and EQ. And then it's also got the effects within the keyboard as well. So a lot of kind of like release is being used. It's quite high on the release. After one note is hit, the release basically sustains that note for a long period of time if you have it quite high. Sounds amazing. It's a very, very kind of Neyyah like sound, but also inspired by sort of Vangelis, Blade Runner as well. So there's kind of Blade Runner, Vangelis influences are coming out there. So I actually take those effects off, and I'm left with that. So the actual keyboard itself is actually doing a lot of the work. And then add effects on again. Just adds the extra haunting kind of shrill quality to it, which is quite nice. Fills it out a bit more. It's fairly low in the mix as well, but it adds to everything else. So I'm actually gonna take that solo off now and play the entire track, and you'll probably be able to hear it. Go. So the next track I really want to kind of show you is this one here. this was a sound that I've added in my registered sounds on this keyboard that I just thought, wow, this definitely reminds me of kind of that Blade Runner Vangelis sound. It's almost like an orchestra. It's so full as well. Like, I've added some effects to it, and I've turned it fairly low down in the mix. Oh, no, I did add effects, so I clicked on the wrong one. So you got some reverb, some EQ. So I'm just going to play it now without the effects. That's very low in the mix as well. And then with effects. So the EQ really kind of brings out some of those volumes in the frequencies, and then the reverb just does the other stuff, the magical stuff. This one is really nice, this particular effect. I can control the time, the size of the reverb really nicely, the spread. It does wonders for these kind of sounds. So yeah, that piece there is actually quite nice within the mix. Adds like a nice warm soft kind of bit to everything, and when that bit actually starts playing within the song, it's like, oh, it's just really nice, especially with the kind of ocean surround and everything. It's just really nice. Then you got like this kind of chorus section that comes in, and a bit of piano that's also playing as well, and I believe it's this track here, and it's very subtle. Oh, there's some strings. I think it might be this one. Okay, here we go. So we've got some extra kind of saxy sounds. That's more of a flute, sorry. Yeah, and the opposite on the pan as well. So the actual little bit of piano that's playing is on the right side, and the flute and pipe sound is more towards on the left. Again, reverb, EQ. I think the piano might be, yeah, reverb, EQ. It was very subtle. We've also got a bit of a fade in with the piano too. I don't want it to be too overpowering right at the start of this bit, of this section of the song. So it kind of fades in. I'll just play it by itself. Again, that reverb just adds so much nice air, like an air feel to the piece. It's perfect for this game. It's not too sharp, not too distracting, not too, but the melody is there, the pieces are there. This is without the effects. So that was with the keyboard. You can see some of those sounds, that kind of like that release, that sound, it's actually being created by the keyboard, the actual effects of the keyboard sound. But that reverb and the EQ kind of give it that more of that depth, but also take away some of the harshness of the notes as well, which is nice. And then within the mix, just there, just where it needs to be, not too much. So yeah, I've got various different tracks going on in this song. It was a joy putting this one together. This is the first track that I've created for Neyyah. In some way, it was almost like a test bed. It was kind of like just a way of being able to see kind of what worked and what didn't. But kind of, thank goodness, it kind of flowed quite naturally. I think I've always had an idea what the music's going to be like for Neyyah. Having done some tests anyway with the keyboard when I bought it in 2021, you know, I laid sound. I made like a list of the sounds that I think I'm going to use. I also did a couple little videos, little phone kind of videos, me trying to play the keyboard and showing my hand where the notes are and stuff. So I did that, and so I already knew, I was quite confident with what kind of direction I was going to go in. And so far, the songs have come along really nicely. They've come out really, really nicely, and they've kind of flowed quite well too. I think the main thing is kind of getting the kind of texture and the sound, the sounds from the keyboard, what I'm going to be using first, feeling that with the actual images of the game, the actual scenes, and then from there, the kind of melodies just kind of flow, and it's kind of like a very kind of quite an easy kind of process in that sense. And I think it's very similar to how Nathan McCree worked with creating the soundtrack for Tomb Raider. That was some really interesting insight there of how he too kind of just created like a bed of sound and then worked from there and worked there from there onwards. So yeah, it's just been wonderful doing this so far. I also want to show you guys the end of this track, because I really like the way this particular piece ends, and I'll just play the whole track by as it is. Turn it down a bit on the speakers. Yeah. So the idea with Neyyah's music as well is that they're reflecting how I feel, particularly as the artist, the creator of the game, how I feel about the environments and how certain things within those locations speak to me, what kind of sounds or music would they create. And I kind of go from there mostly when I'm kind of working on the music, but at the same time I am really kind of taking into consideration the effect of the culture and the effect of the characters that are within the game and how they've shaped the world. And I can't really say too much. I really don't want to spoil anything. I'm so careful how much I give away when it comes to story. But there's a menacing side to the beauty. And I think right at the end of this particular piece, particularly, it's going into that. It's kind of bringing that out. There's a side to what is around you that is kind of almost like a poison to the natural world, and so this kind of reflects that. And I try and kind of bring that out sometimes in certain maybe sounds and like actual tones of the keyboard, or within the melodies or the tempo or the actual texture of the music itself. So I'm just kind of solo that particular sound there. So it's a very kind of I think it's the sax, one of the sweet tenor saxophone sounds, I think, playing there. I didn't label it. Again, reverb, EQ, and the sounds within the actual keyboard itself. So a lot of it's very very samey. There's a lot of samey kind of effects going on, and so that kind of keeps everything quite consistent as well within the game. As with Neyyah's kind of visual style and the locations themselves, although you're going to different locations, they all have a consistency within them. They all feel like they're part of a cohesive world. And I guess the music itself as well is kind of reflecting that, and I think that's really nice. Apart from certain sounds, certain pieces that I've got in mind, which are a bit more, targeted for particular things within the game. I think the main ambience, shares a lot of its notes and shares a lot of its sounds as well. So it seems to work quite nicely for the game. And yeah, that was that piece there. And then in the background, I think you've got this. I think it comes on a bit. Here we go. It sort of fades in about to this point here. It's getting a bit louder. Again, reverb and EQ. So yeah, that was this is the stereo mix for this particular track as well. So I'm quickly going to jump over to the mono mix, and I basically record everything in mono. Certain sounds within the game, like actual like levers and stuff like that, they've actually been they actually are mono tracks. So basically they're coming from kind of like right in the middle of the sort of speakers. They're not stereo. They're not coming from two speakers. They're very centered, which is great for things like levers being pulled, buttons being pressed, that kind of thing. Amongst the more ambient sounds like ocean and all sorts of things like that, they're more stereo based. So they're kind of wider, and they make those levers, those kind of things, stand out a bit more. And so what I did when I started laying down the keyboard tracks is I actually recorded everything in mono. For example, the flute, the pipe sound, everything's in mono in this mix. And some things are panned as well, the effects have been added. And then basically I mixed everything in mono. And this is really great because I did read up fairly recently about how if you're mixing everything in mono, and you can then make sure, even if you've maybe got everything in the middle as well, like nothing's panned, and you can still hear all your different tracks, then that's you can make things sound really good in mono. When you convert that all to stereo, suddenly everything's brought out and everything's expanded and everything sounds really good. So that's the kind of the process I'm going through when I'm actually mixing the music as well. I basically record and mix in mono, and then I convert everything to stereo, and obviously it's exported as a stereo track as well. Getting thirsty. So yeah, that's that track. That's it's called the Signal Tower. That's the name of the title, and it is now within the actual build, which is amazing. This is just the mix as well. So what you're hearing, like in the YouTube video, is just the mix. It's not even the master. So what I'll probably be doing with the masters is I'm actually using a thing at the moment called emaster.com, emastering, something like that, and basically it masters the tracks online, and you can alter the amount of compression, the amount of EQ that you want, and the tracks are sounding really good on there. So yeah, I basically use this this program online called eMastered, and I'll actually show you that track, the Signal Tower, being processed by this. This is probably what I'm going to use to master the tracks, at least for the demo, but I think the sounds are really good in this. One thing I will do quickly is go into the options. I'm just going to set a couple of things. One thing I tend to like doing is creating like a wider stereo width. The EQ, I kind of increase the highs, and you know, extra EQ as well. Mastering is normally normal. Compression is pretty much normal. Volume is normal. I don't really want anything too loud. So yeah, and then I can basically save that. I can upload my track. This is a really cool program, by the way. This is really awesome. So I'll go back into the Signal Tower, go into my exports, and then I've got the OGG file is what's used within Visionaire. Then I've got my actual mix there from Sonar Platinum. So that's processing there, and it's taking all the different settings that I've added and basically use those for the mastered track as well, which is really nice. But yeah, again, that's just the mix. That's what's being used within Visionaire at the moment and what you're hearing within that YouTube video. So here's the master through eMastered for the Signal Tower. Coming out right at the back there really adds to that kind of majesty of the ocean and the surrounds. I think I definitely like how it kind of ascends into all these different sounds. It's always fun, it's almost like a puzzle in itself, kind of working out what needs to be there and what layers need to be there and mixing it all together to really kind of bring out evoking emotions. There's that kind of darker side of things happening again, like I was talking to you about right at the end of the track. And then kind of going back into the environment itself. So it's kind of like a mix between going from character to environment, where you are as a player. It's trying to encompass all those kind of things. And again, that's the kind of, you know, the mastering things there. Also, another thing, I'll just quickly show you the track from original mastered. Original. Mastered. Really brings out the song, which is nice. So yeah, that's the Signal Tower. So that's the first track for Neyyah of many.